Remember the good old days? Well, not everyone does. Fishing journalist Kirk went back to the place where he grew up and found that things have changed for the better. Because on Lake Erie, these are the good old days. In the first episode of the series, Kirk gave us a quick recap on how Lake Erie's fishery went from this to this. We told you how the fishery collapsed, but with the passage of the clean water legislation, bounced back surprisingly fast, and how we accidentally created the greatest walleye lake in the history of the world. The beauty of walleye fishing on Lake Erie is that the fish are attainable to anglers of all different skill sets. But of course, as it goes with all fisheries, there are always the diehards, the ringers, the people so obsessed with the pursuit that they tailor their lives and their careers around that single passion. Captain Robertson is one of those people. An Ohio native, he's been guiding in fishing tournaments here since he was in college. He learned the ropes from some of the most iconic walleye anglers in the history of the sport. And given that he spends the majority of his days out on the lake, the guy basically thinks like a walleye. Spring can be a challenging time on Lake Erie, but with great challenge, as they say, comes great opportunity. This time of year marks the pre-spawn, when all the male walleyes group up with the female walleyes and they get ready to make little walleyes. If it's giant fish you're after, spring is one of the best times to be on the lake, as the females are heavier than they will be at any other time during any other season.
Kurt, here we are. Lake Erie walleye. Good to see you. Let's do this. We've talked about walleye fishing, now we're gonna do it.
This is where we used to.
This is a long time coming. This is your reunion.
This is actually the moment right now. You know, in the context of the walleye specifically, this is probably the greatest fish recovery story of modern times.
Easily. Yeah. I mean, when you hear about other places, I'm not even gonna say their names, but there's 4 or 5 places that claim to be the walleye factory, right? And those places have, in some cases, maybe millions of walleyes, but they don't have tens of millions, let alone over 100 million fish.
Yeah.
So we've got a big body of water to put them in, but things are amazing.
Unfortunately for the walleyes, Ross has more electronics on his boat than a cubicle at NORAD, and to catch these fish, they're going to slow troll crankbaits. Kirk has never experienced modern Erie, and he's never caught a truly big walleye, but that is all about to change.
So what do we have here, bud?
Kurt, we got some line counter reels. So we're gonna let these things out. We got these line counter reels, they're calibrated so the counter matches what's actually happening. And so we're using that so we can reproduce when we either get or don't get results. So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna get these out and we're gonna spread all of these out because we wanna cover the water column. Just like if you were casting, this is just a different version, right? It's gonna go through different portions of the water columns. And so we're gonna do that by letting them out, and then we're gonna put this board on, planer board, whatever you wanna call it.
So what that board is really doing is like a keel. It's kind of like pushing it away from the boat, yeah?
Yes, sir. We're gonna just keep these, 50 feet apart or something like that to cover more water. So we're gonna go through like a rake. You're not gonna believe this, but we got one. So Dieter, we're gonna give you a little run through with Pat. He's done this a couple times.
Good.
So a couple things you wanna do when you're doing this. This is like, there's things in fishing, right? Like fly fishing that we could say, hey, if you're in Montana, you wanna do one thing. If you're in Maine, you wanna do another.
Right.
There's one thing, I don't care if you're in Ohio, Michigan, wherever you're at, where you don't want to pump the rod.
You don't want to pump the rod.
Nope, you're just slow and steady. So Pat's gonna put that rod right over my head, and he's gonna say that counter out. That rod's right over my head, really slow. Really, really slow. One of the biggest mistakes everybody does when they're doing this is they're always reeling too fast. So we're gonna pull a little line out.
Because walleyes are so plentiful on Lake Erie, anglers can afford to be picky about which ones they put in the box. Walleyes this size are the tastiest, most abundant, and most sustainable fish to take home. Most trophy fish are the big females, which Ross always releases because these are the ones that will keep the fishery healthy for the future. Now that the pros have shown Kirk how it's done, he's ready to give it a shot.
Slow and steady, just point right up.
And I start to reel.
Yep. Just slow down. Every time you turn that handle, it's 38 inches. So one thing I'm gonna have you do is we're gonna back up because I got long arms, but they're not that long.
Okay.
Okay, keep coming. So we're gonna tell you that counter out loud.
63.
Yes, sir. So then you're just gonna slowly keeping her tight, work your way back here.
Okay.
Because what that's gonna do is that's gonna keep us from having that fish go underneath the boat. Okay. It's all about angles. You know, Kurt, earlier you said, why are your net handles so long? And that right there is why you got a 9-foot handle.
Thank you.
So that is another really nice walleye. But that's roughly probably a 5-year-old fish. But the thing is if you were to fish in Minnesota, like I don't even want to knock them. You could say the Dakotas or anything. This fish would probably be half that size for the same age. Our fish grow crazy fast.
Because there's just so much to eat.
They literally, you can get a 10-pounder as little as 10 years. In Minnesota, that's almost double.
Wow.
And that's why you just don't see the average size fish like we do here in Erie. So,
well, that's the first Lake Erie walleye I've caught in 50 years. So
here we go.
That's a homecoming. That's a homecoming. Thank you so much.
This is not the last one.
As the morning progresses, the bite continues to pick up momentum and everyone gets a turn pulling in walleye. They're catching plenty of respectable fish, and characteristic of most anglers, after they get spoiled with good numbers, they want larger fish. Stay tuned in the next episode to see if the crew find the big walleyes that they're looking for. Plus, we're going to show you how to clean and cook these Lake Erie delicacies. Stay tuned.